Welcome to the Questionistas. I'm Spencer.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Thomas.
And quick disclaimer, I usually don't get to do the disclaimer. This is for education and entertainment purposes. If you need help, please see a professional. We're not experts, doctors, nor dragons, nor do we give medical advice. Take our words with a gallon of salt.
So with that, Thomas, what's our question today?
The question is, who am I?
But we just introduced ourselves. Do we have to go back and do it again?
So is that who I am? Is my name? Now is who I am the letters, the symbols on paper? Is it the noise, Thomas?
Where
That's
does that
me.
noise come from?
Is it that you're not funny or not catching the joke that Chris was setting up for?
Wait, was there a different joke Chris was setting up for? Wait, what was the joke?
Was it a joke or an intro? We'll never know.
I made a note once related to like Thomas was best label to describe you is your name, and even that does a poor job. So yeah, starting off, I want to get into how do we define who we are. So first off, what does it mean to say I am blank? And what are some of the answers people give to that?
Like I'm a man, I record podcasts, I drive a car, I am a product person, all these labels we have for ourselves.
I am a middle-class white American male.
God bless America.
How about
please
one that I held on to for a long time, and I don't feel like I don't allow myself to say it, as I'm a skier. I grew up skiing. I loved skiing. I was a ski instructor in my early 20s, and then I realized I was poor and I couldn't afford skiing if I wasn't working. And so I haven't skied. I haven't skied for a very long time, but I want to, when I watch the Olympics, that's one of my favorite things to watch is the skiing. So am I a skier? Because it's something that I haven't done for a very long time.
I am a former skier.
I'm a former skier. I'm a recovering skier.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm a recovering, I'm Spencer. I'm a recovering skier.
All I can think about is the powder every day.
Yes.
But that gets into a good question, Spencer, because so many of these I am statements change as life goes on, as our circumstances change, these I ams change. And we live in a society where some of these I ams that, our grandfathers and grandmothers and grandmemas would have said are unchangeable are now changeable. And so we're kind of living in this very paradoxical time where we have the opportunity to explore and become many more things than we ever had. 600 years ago, I am a father's son, baker's son, or, all these last names that we have, Taylor. And then my father's a tailor, I'm going to be a tailor, and that's just how it is. But now
and then their job became their name too.
Right. And so I wonder, are there I ams that are not changing?
Well, and I've thought about that one in relationship to a tattoo. I thought if I'm going to get a tattoo, I want it to be as a permanent. The idea is as permanent as the ink on my skin, right?
Yeah.
So what would be an identity marker for me that I would get? And I was like, well, once a father, always a father. So I guess something related to fatherhood because I have children.
Yeah.
And then the list gets really thin really fast because there's not a lot of things that are as constant of a marker as something that I initiated 20 odd years now.
Yeah.
Because I love dogs, and I have dogs, but will I always have dogs? Skiing. I loved skiing. I thought I would be a skier the rest of my life, and and now I'm not. And so it like scares me to think of certain things that I'm like, well, we were in pre-production, we were talking about a video game that I play. Will I stop playing that video game someday? And if I were to get a tattoo of something of that video game, does that mean that game is no longer my identity? It's part of my identity today. Or do I want to acknowledge that it's part of my identity and I don't want to tell people about it too often? I don't know.
It's like, I'm a gamer.
Yes.
I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I'm a University of Utah fan.
All of these things at once.
What, somebody that owns a car? I'm a person that owns a house. I mean, hopefully...
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Hopefully my mom and dad are listening to this. They're not offended. I'm the kind of person whose parents don't get divorced.
Ah.
Yeah,
so some of these things are totally outside of our control. Which is interesting when we give over our own internal construction to the external world. Won't that always cause some sort of discomfort and anxiety?
Which is why I don't have a tattoo.
Not even a father of Isaac tattoo.
not a father of Isaac.
No.
So I want to take this one more step further with some of the things we've been talking about. Is like, I'm a human. I'm going to go from there to, am I my body? Am I my thoughts? Am I my feelings? If I, close my eyes and, listen to what's going on in the brain, is that me? Am I my accomplishments? Am I the things that I've done? Like for me, I am an author. But there's this little voice in the back of my head that says, but are you really? Because you haven't published yet.
If you don't have an
you're
ISBN,
not a real author. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, if you don't have an ISBN, then what are you?
I mean, I could buy those. Is that what makes me an author? If I just go and buy some ISBNs, do they have to be on a book?
Ooh,
that's a great question.
Or can I just can I please just buy them? That'd be a lot easier than publishing
you're
a
an
book.
author of the backs of the cans of tomatoes.
Yes.
But
Or wait a minute,
question.
do I have to own them? Go ahead, Chris.
Well, we're taught very early in this life that we are our bodies as a way of, and as a means of control. You have both of your fathers, and so you have little kids that are get into, I'm sure, some mischief, and telling them that they're their body and they have to control their body's actions kind of begins this whole identity game that we play.
Why are you crying? Why do you feel like that? Why are you, or why did you do that thing? Because
yes,
which implies it's all in your control. It's all defined and decided by you. It's something I've had to catch myself on, and as I've been studying a lot of cognitive science and trying to be a good father, there was a while that my kids would do something, and I'd be like, "Why'd you do that?" And they'd be like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? And then I learned more about it, and it's like, oh, they might not actually know. I've ranted a lot about the different parts of the brain, the conscious part, the subconscious part, which I would argue both of which are part of you, are maybe. But anyway.
Well, an interesting tool that we can use on this is the observability filter. So if you can observe something, you are probably not that. For example, you can see something in your room, like a book, and we would call that an object. And we would say, because I can observe this book, I'm not the book because I'm what's observing it. And so with the body and our thoughts, we can again apply this filter to it. Is okay, I'm observing my body, therefore it seems separate at some level, because the eyes.
If you force that into a physical space, a three-dimensional space, if you're observing something, then you can't be the thing.
Right, because
unless
there's
you get
some
into
sort of
non-Euclidean
distance.
geometry.
We need to get a mathematician on to prove or disprove that one, Thomas. The statement "I understand what you're saying" is not an I am.
So, let's see. Okay, one thing I also want to talk about, I want to move forward into identity because this is probably going to be, not probably, this is definitely going to be a two-parter. And the first part is I want to talk a lot about how we answer the question, who am I? How we respond with I am, and what are the different ways that trips us up. One example I want to start with is I find in a lot of the modern dialogue, people saying things about discovering who you are, finding your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, first off, what are things that people do say about that?
I'm trying to think of there's kind of a modern pop culture phrase around finding out who you are and being true to yourself, right? There's this notion of being true to you. I can't think of the pop culture phrase that's, well, that's not part
I
of
guess
the
I'm
pop
jumping
culture
straight
phrase.
into the deconstruction now, but
right.
I mean, some answers that people have is like, okay, who are you? Or discovering your true self or finding your purpose. And a lot of times it relates to like your gender identity. It relates to like what career you want to pursue, which is often couched in language of follow your dreams,
right,
and follow your passion. And in America, we add an addendum a lot to that, which is, and you'll make money.
Yeah.
And you'll be successful. I want to be a successful person. And there's a whole package of stuff that comes with it. So, what are some hidden assumptions about reality that people have when they say you need to find who you are?
It's a really good question. It's going to take a bit to unpack because there's always different levels that people are coming at this with because, for some of the higher levels, that self-discovery and self-inquiry can, really, I would say, unlock some deeper understandings because, like we've been talking about, most of these body, mind, career identifications are slippery, are difficult to hold on to, and constantly changing. And so internally, we feel this disconnect or we feel this anxiety about holding on to these things, proving them, or fully bringing them into the world. And so part of discover yourself could be an injection of doubt, which we always have to be cognizant of when someone tells us to begin doubting ourselves. Because they can either be pointing at the doubt that is inherent, or they can be trying to generate doubt as a way of increasing mental flexibility, perhaps also directing you into their $9.99 a month school course that's going to solve all your problems.
So are you suggesting that introducing doubt can be healthy? You identified that it can be dangerous and manipulative to get you into buying my course, but can it be healthy? Is that what you're saying?
It can absolutely be healthy if we're stuck in a limited set of beliefs or a limited perspective or a limited definition of ourselves, then introducing that doubt is the only way that we can get out of this belief prison that we've built for ourselves. Because until we introduce doubt or until we introduce the questioning aspect, we're stuck holding on to these things which, might be helping us, might be hurting us, and are slippery. Mm-hmm. And so I think introducing someone into doubt can be healthy. Absolutely.
That's interesting because I think about the the classic question that most kids are asked, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
And there's a lot of assumptions around that, like you're saying, that
how will you contribute to society,
how
to the
are you going to
capitalist
contribute?
machine?
Yes, how will you be a gear ground to the nub, in your own way when you get older? And I remember thinking, well, I got two thoughts going. One is, I remember thinking that uh I was going to decide to be a certain thing when I got older, but I'm thinking, did I not have enough doubt suggested to me during that process because I was so confident in what I wanted to be, that no one said, well, what about this? What about this? Why don't you want to be this? And seeding doubt is a really interesting idea of using positively, because I think I see that as just inherently very negative. But yeah, I wonder if others proposed other opportunities for me, if that would have helped allow myself to be more plastic in my ideas of what I want to be. But there's such an inherent assumption to, what do you want to be, because you can only be one thing and you're going to be that the rest of your life. Right. Once you, whatever grow up means, once you grow up. And
my daughter asked
that question,
me, oh, go ahead and finish, sorry.
Yeah, that question is just inherently flawed, and I've seen criticism on, don't ask that to kids. That's such a crappy question.
My daughter was asking me the other day, well, there's just so many things I want to be and do and learn about. Like, I want to be a dancer and an artist and a paleontologist. And yeah, I'm reading her dinosaur books. And nice. She was like, what if I don't want to focus on just learning one thing? And I'm like, you don't have to. I learn everything that I want. And I study whatever I want. And yeah, it means I study a lot of things, and I don't know. People will tell you, no, you should focus, you should specialize. And I don't know if there's a benefit to that beyond career optimization.
And I think for some people, that is what they want. They know what they want to be, and they know what they want to do. And I think an important distinction is the idea between a noun, a verb, and an adverb. Boy, I'm getting into this again. So
I like
what
this.
You want to
being a thing, doing a thing, or a thing that describes you,
or what it makes you feel. So, dancing, the idea I want to be a dancer implies professional, implies all these things, but the sentence I enjoy dancing is different from I want to be a dancer. And I feel free, at peace, joyful, and excited when I'm dancing points more towards our inner needs and what we're actually looking for. So we often mistake the noun, the object, with the feeling we're trying to invoke by either becoming that object or by acquiring that object.
Woof.
Yeah, lots of woof. The thought I have in Latin languages, they have two states of being. Mm-hmm. They have a being for I am hungry, which means which is a temporary state, and then I am a dancer, which is a permanent state. But what if I temporary state I am a dancer, but then I feel like you're flipping it on a different side of a different facet, which is I enjoy dancing. I could say I'm a dancer because I enjoy this thing.
Yeah.
But then and I don't know if that's necessarily wrong, because that could be synonymous of here are the things that I enjoy, thus I am those things.
Right.
That I enjoy. And that's kind
or are we just pure enjoyment, and the expression of that is distinct in each of our lives?
Yeah. Well, I could say what my job is and I don't enjoy it, so am I that thing?
At a professional mixer, certainly.
Yes, at a professional mixer, I'm like, well, I'll just lie.
Nice.
Yes, I do this
But
thing and I love it. It is
that brings
great.
me
I actually do
to
love
the
my job, but go ahead, Chris.
well, that brings me to the question, like, why build an identity at all? Why either A, carry one around, or B, communicate it? Like, is there a utility to identification, or have we inflated the utility of identification with and have tried to make it carry more weight than it is capable of carrying? As in, if you're
Yeah.
meeting a stranger, the stranger probably needs to know the sounds that your body would respond to, so you tell it your name, so that if that person wants to refer to you or communicate with you, they can use the name that body responds to. And if you're, trying to interview someone or bring on a new teammate, having them know your title or what you do at the company is helpful. It has utility, it has communication, there's reasons for it. But have we overinflated this identity concept to make us not be concerned or question these sort of fundamental things in our life of like, oh, I'm an architect, or oh, I am a father, I am this, and by fixing an identity in this location, I don't have to feel this sense of uncertainty and confusion, which is always in the background of my existence. So I wondered if you guys would talk a little bit about like identity utility, and then maybe where identification has become too strong for you and actually led to a negative outcome for yourself.
So for me, well, one example was about my parents. Like I incorporated their relationship as part of my identity, or at least that's my theory about why it hurt so much. And then it hurt. But first, about the usefulness is it can give you shorthand to help you navigate the world. If you know some of the basics of someone, then you can understand some of the ways that you can act around them, the ways that you can talk to them, the ways that the opinions you can share. And again, the name one, that's a good example of like a quick label you can use to identify. I think the biggest problem comes, and I had to look him up, the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure talked about, it's a thing called semiotics, but he talks about the signifier and the signified, or the sign and the thing. And I'm going to harp on this till kingdom come. The symbol that you have in your brain is not the thing in front of you. Your idea or the name of a person or a thing is not the name or the person or the thing. You can't. You need to remember they're not the same. Say that again.
You can't eat the word apple.
You can't eat the word apple. You can eat an apple, but even then, as I say the word apple, we are drawing upon some kind of concept in our head that even that concept is representative, but it's not the apple.
Right.
The identity isn't the name, isn't the person. The name isn't the thing.
Right.
There's a famous art piece called Chair, 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 Joseph Kosuth, where it's a picture of a chair, it's a physical chair, and then there's a written description of a chair on a, and so two are canvases, one is a physical chair in front of the other two. And then there's This Is a Chair, it's a one act play. Carol, oh gosh,
Burnett.
Carol Churchill, that kind of plays on that talks about that as well, I think. But you can't eat a chair, you can't eat an apple, or the word apple. I think about the idea of idols, Similar, the 10th commandment, one of the 10 commandments is not to worship idols. And I think it's an interesting idea, especially at this intellectual level, that we have developed idols of everyone around us, and they are static, they are either non-dimensional or nowhere near as dimensional as the actual creature or the person in front of you. And so sometimes I think worshiping idols is making assumptions of, well, this person would only ever do X, or they'll never forgive me for what I did, or they'll never change their mind on that. And I think that's a concept of worshiping the idols in our mind versus actually allowing the person to be a person that exists in front of you.
Right. Taking the thoughts as real and true and accurate.
Correct.
I think it's really fascinating you brought up the idols example, because I've studied a lot of biblical scholarship, and even among the Jews, despite what that verse says, like the idols or the symbols or the holy places or whatever were viewed as an extension of that divinity. Like, this is that God. This is a part of that God. This is an extension of that God. So I don't know necessarily how that plays in, but the especially the modern interpretations of some of those verses in the Bible paints that as just a bad thing.
Right.
But I don't know, looking more into some of their mindset, it wasn't that simple. It wasn't like, oh yes, this metal thing is my God and I'm going to worship it. And it's like, haha, look at those idiots worshiping a piece of clay.
Right.
But it's like, you're worshiping a name in some ways. And is that name not in some way a smaller extension of the person?
And
I don't know.
It's interesting because like in the faith of Islam, we're not allowed to worship idols or give any sort of names other than Allah to that divinity. And there's an interesting quote from Ramana Maharshi, an Indian saint who lived. He left his body in like 1950, and Hinduism, there's a lot of worship of idols, essentially. And so an Islamic scholar came to him and asked him, what you know the truth, what is this idol worship? And he said, "O you that ridicule idol worship, having not discovered through heart-melting love its secret, how is it that you daily worship the filthy idol of your body as I?" So he's saying us identifying our body as ourself is the most foolish form of idol worship.
Which could happen, I think, with a lot of things you make part of your identity.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Well, let me segue this to kind of another aspect. We're talking about labels. We're talking about identity. We're talking about the utility of it. I want to talk about the opposite of that. And I remember having this conversation about idols with someone. They said, well, when I see people with a Utah license plate, I've already established what kind of driver they are.
Yep.
Because people that drive in Utah are the worst drivers. Oh, guaranteed. I've driven in every other state, and I know people from Utah suck.
Well, I know I do, but not the rest of them.
Well, yeah, but I'm good. I'm a good driver, right?
I'm saying I'm
that
the
doesn't
opposite.
reflect. Oh, you're a bad driver? Is that what you're saying?
Bad driver. Sorry, Spencer.
When can a label hurt you? When is it using labels for yourself or for others damaging and harmful? Because Chris, you don't live in Utah right now.
No, I don't.
Have you heard
the drivers were too bad? I had to move out.
have you heard that? I gotta assume everyone, at least with higher traffic areas, assume that the drivers from their state are the worst drivers.
It does
I
seem
just
to
feel like,
be a repeating pattern for many people.
yes,
These are the worst drivers.
yeah.
But and
But for some
it's
reason,
interesting because that is such a microcosm of our life and how we interact, because there's an idea when you're driving is that I was taught driving correctly, and this correct manner of driving is the only way to drive, and therefore if you drive differently than how I think you should, you are wrong.
well, and I think that this is going into how our labels hurting us, because
Yeah.
It's like getting that
There-
cause and effect in the wrong order, or the description and the thing. You're flipping it. Like this, something I say is a big problem with labels is first you use them to describe you or others, but then you let them decide who you are or others are. You take it and you reverse it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying that box is green, I don't know, green is that box.
Mm.
One identity marker that's I'm gonna throw out an identity marker and tell me what your thoughts are on this. Being a gun owner, insofar that you have not even a concealed carry, an open carry weapon on you. So you walk up to someone and you see an open carry gun on that person. That becomes an identity marker.
I think it means you love freedom in America.
Right. But what if that person says, no, I'm I don't love freedom in America, or you go, oh, well, clearly that person is of this political persuasion. Like, actually, I'm of the opposite political persuasion. I just happen to have an opinion about guns, and so far that I'm wearing one right now.
I saw a sticker on somebody's bumper. It was I believe it was a trans flag, had an AK-47 imposed over it, and it said something like "protect our trans friends with violence if necessary" or something like that.
Interesting.
I was like, this is chewy.
Those,
I like
those
this.
identities don't usually merge, I guess, is what I'm getting to, right?
Which is interesting, because these identities, what you brought up is we have all these assumptions about these labels or identities, and our assumptions are not always correct.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's a point where labels can hurt. And I think, I guess, instead of seeing an identity marker or a label that someone, even they self-proclaim, I am this, instead of using that, my suggestion is, instead of using that as I have pegged you, I've decided who you are and what you do and what you are, instead of using that as oh, tell me more about that. That's interesting.
Right.
That allowing identity markers, and it doesn't have to be the gun that on their hip. It can be the fact that they're wearing a pin that says I like cheese. I mean, like, why does it have to be? It doesn't necessarily have to be the highly charged identity markers, but it could be any identity marker that wow, that's an interesting bumper sticker. I have no idea what that means. Tell me more. It's from an anime. Oh, okay, I know who you are then.
So
anime people, that's one exception. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I had, and sorry if you just asked a question and my brain has just been stuck on this other thought, but I have a friend who, shorthand in my head, I just call him a libertarian. And it's not the libertarian friend I usually talk about. But we were talking about people putting each other into buckets. And I was like, and I do the same thing to you. So tell me more about what you think and what you believe. And he's like, well, here are the things that I think and I believe. And he listed this whole list of like beliefs and ideas. And I'm like looking at it, and it's like, it's complex description. And you can't throw any of the labels, the main generic labels at him.
Right.
because he has, and you know me in politics, I think it's a false
love it.
dichotomy, and it's a false
Your
spectrum.
favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. And like left, right, center. Well, what about purple? And what about bacon? Anyway, I have to keep challenging myself, and that his actual beliefs are more complicated than that. Oh, somebody made up a word for realizing that someone's life is just that everyone's lives out there are probably just as complicated as yours. Like, imagine trying to put yourself in one of those kinds of buckets. Like, no, I'm way more nuanced than that. So is everybody else.
Right.
There's something that we've been talking about and haven't really named in all of this is stereotyping, right? There's a lot of stereotyping that happens with pegging someone for what they are or are not based on one point of data. I'm going to just point that out, and someone else can continue. But I feel like there's more to just identifying someone based on a stereotype and allowing that to be an opportunity to tell me more versus, oh, so you're one of them, right?
And we have so many of these stereotypes, whether they're, religious stereotypes, racial stereotypes based on what kind of car you drive, whether you drive, do you have a TV, what kind of food do you eat, what are your preferences in the bedroom? Like, I'm sure just on that short list alone, you can think of 200 different stereotypes. And, we have all of these shortcuts, or we're taught them in our life to help us make sense of this complicated world. But it seems like at a certain point, you have to question, are these serving me? Are they helping me? Or are they kind of limiting beliefs?
Mm-hmm. And tell me, Thomas, you're the fallacy expert. Is it straw man? I had a daughter once, and I ordered something at a restaurant, and I didn't order what she wanted, and she ordered something different. And she said, "Well, why didn't you order?" No, she didn't. I said, "I didn't want to order what you got. I ordered what I got." And she says, "Well, why do you hate the food that I have?" And I was like, "Girl, slow your roll." That's how I talk to my teenage daughters. It's the only way they understand.
Girl, slow your roll.
Then they're like, "Are you from the 90s?" The 90s called. They want your sayings back. But it was this quick just straw man. I think it's straw man, or fits into the straw man fallacy of just I said I don't like that, and thus it's, why do you hate everyone that's like that, or why do you hate people that eat that food? And I was like, whoa,
it's not quite straw
whoa,
man, but it's in that same family of like taking what somebody else said and making it something else.
Yeah. And
it sounds like catastrophizing, almost, of like heightened emotional response.
Right. Which sounds, here's my stereotyping, sounds like a teenager to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But it sounds like a child learning the distinctions between the nuances. It really was an opportunity for me. Like, hold on, that's not, pay attention to what I said, because what I said is intentional. And know that doesn't mean that I hate these other things. That means I like something else instead.
We need to spend less money on, I'm not making this statement myself, I'm using it as an example. We need to spend less money on welfare. Why do you hate disabled people?
Yeah.
Right.
False equivalence. I think that's what it is.
There it is. That's what
I knew we would find it somewhere here.
It's somewhere. I was just searching my brain to, I found it in there.
Words.
In the catacombs. The catacombs of my mind.
Well, and stereotyping also can if we believe those stereotypes, there's also a lot of stereotypes that apply to ourselves, uh,
Yeah, we talked about a lot when
reproduction.
we were doing ed tech stuff together.
Right.
Sorry, keep going.
Well, sometimes those stereotypes can help. If you have a stereotype that you think, people of your race do better at math, then that might push you to be doing better at math if you believe that. And if you have the opposite stereotype of, oh, it's difficult for people like this to read, then you might believe that, and that actually might be a hindrance to your joy of reading.
Yeah.
And so these self-beliefs, I would not recommend anyone create them for themselves of, oh, if a positive stereotype leads to improved performance, I'm going to believe this. I'm going to make up a stereotype for myself.
Well, you can't even really do that on purpose.
Right.
Like the only way that that bad stereotype can really affect you, or even the good stereotype affect you, which there's research on that too, is if you just believe that's how it is.
There's an interesting paradigm, and I've experienced it in two different groups, but I have a feeling it's in others. One is autism, and one is, or neurodivergence, I guess, in general, and one is type 1 diabetes. Some people don't like that you self-identify as I am diabetic or I am autistic. Instead, the quote proper way is I have autism, I have diabetes. This doesn't identify me, or this doesn't define me. This is something that I just happen to exist around.
There's not a single homosexual member of the church. There are just members who have same-sex attraction.
Correct. Oh dear. Don't open that.
My train just derailed.
I probably derailed a few trains with that. But I mean, there is something about the whole identity there.
Yeah.
But some identities are okay, and some identities, or some aspects are okay to be part of your identity, and some aspects are something that just happen to you. And I guess it depends on the group.
Well,
what falls under each category.
Are also mentioning like the separation or the distinction between a property and an identity, where my body has diabetes as a property of that body or an attribute, but I am a diabetic is more of an identity that you can get attached to. But my body has diabetes, or my pancreas doesn't work, is something that can change, and it's less personal, I guess.
Well, and is it similar to I enjoy these things? My body is prone to experiencing skiing more than bicycle riding.
Yeah.
And yeah, not to diminish that thought, I think that's an interesting way of talking about now, whether I ski or not is a choice, whether I have diabetes or not is not a choice, right? And so I think maybe that example falls apart there, but yeah, noting your identity comes with that thing. And I've got a daughter with type 1 diabetes, and she's a teenager, and I don't think we ever go around saying, well, she's a diabetic, when we introduce it to people.
Yeah.
And quite often we don't even mention it. It's none of your damn business what her medical
unless you're
conditions
cooking
are.
For us, why would you
unless you're cooking for us, and then we can say she has diabetes, and that's my knee-jerk reaction. So I guess that's how I explain her existence with that illness. But yeah, I know that there's some people that they're just like, oh, I'm diabetic, and they use that as a shortcut. And one of the stereotype, in user experience, I kind of go under the assumption when designing something that people are lazy. Not people, but their brain is lazy. They just want shortcuts. Everyone needs shortcuts.
They want to conserve energy and do things the most energy
effective.
cheap way, energy effective
Yeah.
way possible.
Yeah, and so the lazy way of saying that is, well, they're just lazy. Well, that without uncanning that can of worms. I mean, that calling people lazy in any fashion is
I had to count
extremely
all the
problematic.
times that somebody has insulted the user set and insulted their intelligence.
Yeah,
Like, well, our users are dumb. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, your interface is confusing.
yeah, and it's but at the same time, understanding that our brains are very conscious of being as energy efficient as possible, and that means using the least amount of identity markers or identity data points to label this person and put them in a box is not necessarily wrong, but it is, as we talked about, dangerous. And at the end of the day, the labels can hurt you if you're not careful about. And maybe we need to put more people in the nuanced box, right? Than the clear cut boxes.
Here's the scary
Sometimes our
thing.
brains.
You got to put everybody in the nuance box.
What?
Oh, dude, I don't like your suggestion.
Why are people scared of doing that? Why or hesitant? Why don't people want to admit that other people are complex and that the label for them is insufficient?
Well, continuing my argument, because we're just trying to conserve energy. Our brain is just instinctually, evolutionarily, whatever, is trying to conserve energy, and thus we put them in different boxes that are not the nuance box.
Well, and it's several things. It's habit. We habitually do this.
Yeah.
In this life. The second thing is it's safe. If we believe these boxes exist, then I can put all the things I don't like about myself that I see in other people in a box labeled bad, and then put all these other labels on that box, and then I can be good.
And I can mail that box to myself.
Yeah. Hopefully it gets lost in the mail. But it's also just kind of a protection mechanism for the mind, or the mind believes that by having definitions, it creates a safer world and therefore it can rest. And we all know that a restless mind is an unhappy mind. And so therefore we allow it to build these boxes of signifiers of this person is this way, I am this way, they are that way, this group of people acts like this, so that we don't have to go into every situation with this feeling of uncertainty or confusion. If we hold on to these identities and these stereotypes and these assumptions, then we can continue doing what we did yesterday and feel at least a little sense of stability in this world. But that leads me to the question of children have very limited identities, or at least they're, when a baby is born, it would be hard to say that its identity is formed. But we see such joy and happiness in children without identity, And so I wonder how much of this identity is actually necessary for day-to-day functioning, and whether the pointers of, Zen mind, beginner's mind, or Jesus holding up a child saying, this is the only one who is ready to go to heaven. Is it our identities? Is it our fixed beliefs which are causing our suffering? And that stability that we're looking for is actually not in identity. It is in being comfortable with not knowing.
I think one aspect of that for me is kind of going back just a little bit about the name and the thing that is named.
Right.
You cannot fit the entirety of the universe into your head. One of my regurgitatory phrases. But kind of what that means is you have ideas that do actually help you navigate the world. And these labels and these ideas of who people are can help. But if you treat them like an absolute, you're going to get the psychological damage when that label doesn't line up anymore. You're gonna be, if you invest so much in them, either for yourself or other people, then they're just gonna start grinding together. Oh gosh, what was I talking about? I was talking to somebody about, I have an addictive personality.
Oh.
And they were like, when it comes to these things, like maybe you were taught that if you have these feelings, then you have an addictive personality, but maybe you don't actually. And so having an idea in the back of your head all the time, two things. Holding loosely these ideas about the world, because if you just toss everything out, you might have a hard time navigating life. But holding onto them loosely and being able to let them go and grab a new one, or hey, you know what? That's wrong. I'm going to tweak that. Oh, look, I'm going to take that one back. Then you don't have to go through a crisis of faith or a crisis of confidence, or heck, even worse, lying to yourself to make your old ideas work every time you find out that something you thought was incomplete or incorrect.
Okay, so I want to move us towards what can we do? How can we leverage this identity that we're talking about? How can we leverage these labels? I'm going to give one and then open up to any suggestions you guys have. I'm bad at math. You ready? You ready for that label? Well, first, I think it ultimately comes to the assumption you are because you say you are.
Right.
That's not meant to be philosophical. That's just very practical. Like if you,
whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Right. And so I'm bad at math. And when I was in college, I had to spend extensive amount of time in the math lab where they had employed people to help you with the rudimentary math that I struggled with because I'm so bad at it. And there was a kid in my class that was in there, and every time, about every 2 or 3 minutes, he'd go, "Yes, I'm awesome." And he this is a public space where there's maybe 20 to 30 people, and he would just scream out, and I went over, I'm like, "What are you doing, dude? Like, you're distracting everyone." It's like, I don't give a dang. I'm so bad at math. And he was like fighting with himself this label. Like, I know I'm bad at math because this takes a lot of time. But at the same time, I'm going to shout out my positive energy as much as possible every time I accomplish a math question so that I can feel a little bit better about myself. And maybe, and it was, and he didn't say it that way. He said it, but that was essentially what he was going towards. And I think sometimes it takes time to change that perspective. Like, I don't want to say I'm bad at math anymore. I know I shouldn't say that anymore. But yet, unintentionally, I instinctually just said that, just a couple minutes ago. And I'm not really bad at math. It's just, and I'm like, well, math comes hard to me. Well, maybe I just haven't spent a lot of time with it. Well, and it takes me a little bit of a couple thoughts to get out of that process of like, actually, I'm not really bad at math, am I? And his way, and I think it was a great exercise of just, well, how many times have you been praised for when you accomplished some of your math, and being able to do that for my kids? And it's really interesting. My wife, one, she's not bad at math. Two, she's really good at it. And all of my kids have, we go, well, fortunately, you're good at math like your mom is.
Nice.
But at the same time,
like it's a completely heritable trait.
Right. Oh yeah, totally right. But at the same time, I'm doing math with them all the time. I understand the math that they're doing. I haven't, fortunately they're not doing the really hard stuff that definitely does, make me stop and think for a second. But at the same time, I try to be very complimentary of like, hey, that was great. Good job. Dude, you did all the math today. That was great. Was that hard? Yeah, well, you deserve it because you worked hard. And not, ooh, that's another one. Using you're talented, this comes natural to you is so freaking dangerous. And that's maybe a personal opinion, but I want to believe I'm right.
You're getting into fixed versus growth mindset. Are you a thing? Are you a fixed thing? Or are you amorphous?
And the amount of the amount of times as when I was an artist, when I was a full-time artist in art school, say it that way, they still believe I'm an artist. The amount of times people said, "Oh, you're so freaking talented. Oh, wow, you're so talented." I was like, do you know how many freaking hours I spent in the studio? I'm sitting here
get really offended.
Yeah.
Used to. I still get really offended when people say that I'm talented at something.
Yeah, it's kind of,
you don't like
kind
that,
of offensive.
Thomas?
No, I don't. And I try to think, okay, they probably don't. They saw that I did something good or well, and they're like, yeah, you're talented. They probably weren't thinking, well, is he talented, meaning a sort of inherent trait, or is he skilled, meaning it's something he's developed over time? Like they're not thinking about it at that level. But I don't know, even then it feels like the fixed mindset is hanging out in there.
Yeah.
Well, and a little bit of imposter syndrome and being unable to accept compliments, which happens when your mind is very fast and tends toward the negative.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Innately do.
I had a great person. I was ho humming because everyone was giving me a compliment at work on a project I did, and I went to this guy and I was like, I don't know what to do. And he said, let me give you some advice. Say thank you. The end. And it was like, I was freaking 35, and it was the most revolutionary idea to be like, oh yeah, I just need to say thank you and move on and stop thinking about it myself.
My wife said she used to argue with people, or kind of argue with people, when they would like compliment her on her singing and stuff when she'd perform in church and whatever. And her dad was like, you got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
It's not a sign of humility. It's just humiliating.
All right. So what other ideas, practical things that we could leverage, or information that we could use, or tricks to help us use our labels better?
I guess, well, this is a little bit of an aside, but it is a tool, is you can spend 5 minutes or, 5 seconds, whatever, and actually just put all your labels down. And so taking a little vacation, taking a little vacation from yourself, from your labels, and just putting all of that down. Don't worry, it'll still be there after the time, but we come into these things, some of the biggest ones: I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm this, that, and the other thing. But we could actually just take a siesta, take a break from it for 5 minutes.
What does that look like? My fear
this is actually probably
just writing the list.
It's probably click. After you describe what this looks like, I think that's a good place to stop. What does that look like, Chris?
I think it's just kind of sitting in a quiet place, and if you want to think of the labels of I am a father, I'm a husband, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a daughter, I'm a student, then you can even just imagine putting them down. Or you can bring them up in your mind and then say, I am not this, for just a brief minute. I am letting this go. You can say I'm consciously letting go of this identification. I'm letting go of this label. My behavior might stay the same. My love for these people might stay the same, but I can just take a minute and feel what I feel like when I do not identify as this.
Interesting. Very
I'm
cool.
going to add one follow-up activity to that, and then we'll wrap. Take those identities and ask yourself, if I weren't this, would I still be worthy of love and existence? If I weren't a father, if I weren't an author, if I weren't an artist, if I didn't have that identity or that aspect to me. And do it with all of them and take them all away. And ask yourself, am I still worthy of existence and love? And it might help you see if you're listening too much to certain ways of measuring your value. And I bring this up a lot, but measuring your value by your contribution to society, measuring your value by your living up to a certain standard. And asking yourself, would I be a waste of space if I didn't have this as a part of me? And the answer is no, you would not be.
Or do I still exist even without this label?
Right? Is there any me left?
Always a good place to end an episode.
Once everything's gone, is there anything left? Yes.
Ooh.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Questionistas. Have a wonderful day and keep asking questions.